The Bill and Kelly Show is recorded at Studio A at Executive Suite Squared in beautiful Hammond, Indiana. Now, here's Bill and Kelly.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show. Today, we are so lucky to have the very beautiful and talented and fabulous Mary Deboer, who happens to be a circuit court judge for Porter County. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill and Kelly. Thanks for offering to have me on your show. I'm super excited.
Well, we're excited to have you.
And I made sure with Kelly in a previous show, I brought it up. I said, is it okay to call her beautiful now that she's a judge?
Well, I said I would.
So I'm like, gosh, can we get...
You can get away with that. No.
Okay.
But
well, as long as you don't have a case in front of me, it's not like you're trying to sway me or influence me. It's all good.
Oh, we are a big case, and we're in front. So there you go.
We're a basket case, if that counts.
Well, welcome to our show.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
Thank
honored.
you.
So honored. So, well, I thought we'd start off with, because there's maybe a few of our listeners that maybe don't know you because they're not from the Porter County area. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, where you went to school, and how you came to be a judge?
Okay, great. So my formative years, basically from third grade through college, I grew up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I went to Western Michigan University. Originally, I planned on being a law enforcement officer. So I went to a 4-year program to try to just get the education, a 4-year degree behind me. And then my last year was going to be spent focusing on like precision driving and shooting and things like that to give me the qualifications to be a police officer. But my junior year, I started realizing how much I was loving college and the academics. And so I thought, I'm going to keep going and see how that works. So I applied for law school and I got in. And that's what brought me to Porter County, because I went to VU Law School back in 1990, I started. So I graduated from law school and became a deputy prosecuting attorney. It was kind of a nice dovetail with my law enforcement desires, so to speak. So it kind of allowed me to be with the police, helping the police and prosecuting and bringing forward cases of crimes against people who had violated our criminal code. So I did that for about 13 years. And as far as being a judge, it's kind of crazy. Well, let me back up, because if I don't say this, my husband will be so hurt. But I met my husband when I was in law school, and he was an attorney here in Valpo. And we got married and now have a almost 24-year-old daughter, Lindsay. I have 3 stepkids from his prior marriage, Aubrey and Ashley, who both live on the East Coast. I have 1 granddaughter who's 6. And then we have Dane, who was our son that was killed in Afghanistan in 2010 on June 25th. So our family is now, Dave is completely outnumbered by women. There are 3 daughters and me, and 2 male cats. So he's got that to help. But that's about it. So then bringing us back around, as far as being a judge goes, never, ever in a million years, originally set my sights on that. It was kind of where the forks in the road in my life took me. I had a lot of experience in the criminal arena, and my employer at the time was a prosecuting attorney who decided to run for the circuit court judge position in Stark County, and he actually won. And so all of a sudden he had this judgeship and he had a vacancy for a magistrate. So I applied for that thinking, I'm sure that I'm not going to get this, but I'm going to try, because I know he and I had worked so well together, and he gave me that opportunity. And so that's what really got me going. I was on the bench. I was hearing all kinds of different cases and presiding over all the different types of cases that came in front of the circuit court, which was everything except for misdemeanors. And finally, I was there for 2 years, and I wanted to come back to Valparaiso and kind of work more in my own community, because in Stark County, that's 2 counties over. And I just kind of wanted to share my talents here locally. So luckily in 2011, the position of the Porter Superior Court Magistrate became available. And I applied for that and was unanimously approved or appointed by the 6 judges here in our county to serve that role. So I did that from 2011 and through the end of 2019. So that's what initially got me into it. I absolutely love being on the bench and being in the position that I think where I can contribute problems resolved. Instead of advocating for one side or the other, like as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, or as a civil attorney working for one of the sides, just being able to be in that objective position, hearing the evidence come before me, and then making decisions that will hopefully, bring a resolution to the cause. That has been something that I've really enjoyed doing while I've been on the bench. So in about 2018, the fall of 2018, I had heard some grumblings from Judge Harper that she was planning on retiring and that she was going to finish out her term. And the same with Judge Bradford. They both were their terms end at the end of 2020. So I started kind of thinking about, do I want to run for one of those 2 seats? Well, then I ended up finding out from Judge Harper that there might be a chance that she was going to step down early. She hadn't made up her mind yet. So once I started thinking about that, I thought, well, if she steps down early, then I would have the opportunity to apply for the appointment. And I felt like I had some good connections with the party here in Porter County. And I also had some good connections with the party in Indianapolis and the people there that go into making that decision. So I thought, well, if she decides to step down early, that's the path I'm going to take. And that will dictate if I want to run for circuit court versus superior court. And ultimately, she said, I'm going to step down. She told everybody that it's going to be sometime near the end of 2019. So once that vacancy was posted, then I could apply. And there were 3 other individuals besides me who applied for it. And Governor Holcomb called me on November 13th at about 10:50 in the morning and announced that I had received the appointment and asked if I would accept it. And I was like, are you kidding me? So yeah.
That for a second.
Yeah, let me ponder that. I don't know. So that was seriously one of the best days of my entire life. And after that, my phone started blowing up and it was just really exciting. So my start date was officially January 1st of 2020. So it's just been about 6-7 months now that I've been in this position. And it's been a crazy 7 months, that's for sure.
Yeah, I tell you.
Yeah, you just get to take over and then COVID.
Right. So I had 2.5 months in. I got my first jury trial under my belt as the circuit court judge. It was a civil case and was really just starting to hit my rhythm because Judge Harper is, first of all, the circuit court is the court with the most jurisdiction. It's the only court that I have the same criminal and civil docket as Judges Clymer and Bradford. But on top of that, I oversee the entire juvenile court. So the juvenile court, the juvenile detention center, and the juvenile probation department. So there are over 100 employees that I have to be in charge of and manage, as well as carrying all the same cases that the other judges do. So it's basically, it really takes some time to kind of just get acclimated. And I didn't want to change any of her scheduling until I lived in her shoes for a while to see where I felt I wanted to make any changes. I didn't want to just upset the apple cart for the sake of doing that. So I thought, okay, I'm going to just give it about 6-7 months and live in this for a while and see where I'd like to tweak the calendar and see how I want to rearrange appointments and meetings. And then COVID hit and everything just changed dramatically for all of the courts. So it took a weird turn. I would say that probably in about mid-March, judges started hearing things from Indianapolis and Marion County about this crazy COVID stuff. And we had been hearing it on the news, but the fact that it was hitting close to home with us in Indianapolis started becoming more apparent. So then it was like, well, how is this going to impact us? And then all of a sudden it it just felt like it hit all at once. And we went from having full criminal calls and full civil calls and jury trials and meetings and conferences and education conferences and things like that, to people wearing masks and things are getting canceled and we're doing things by video, and you know, people, skeleton crews, you know, in our courts. It was just really eerie and weird. We only were allowed to hear the most emergent cases and deal with the cases where the people were in custody at the Porter County Jail because their liberty was restricted, so they had a priority over everybody else, and we could do those by video. So all of a sudden this thing came to a screeching halt in the norm, but even though we weren't having as many court cases, it felt like we were still busier than ever, because we had to start establishing protocols for the people who are in our courthouse, and, you know, litigants and witnesses. What are we going to do with these people? And we had to start developing, first of all, how are we going to keep our own staff safe? Because we can cancel hearings, but we had to just start trying to figure out a safety plan for everybody. So it was really kind of a weird, grueling time.
So when did the courts begin coming back to normal? When did you start opening up and there was more activity than during the beginning of the COVID crisis?
Well, in mid-April, the Supreme Court of Indiana instructed all of the courts in the state to start compiling a transition plan for our county, so that we could lay out for them what our plans were to safely reopen. And those plans were due at a certain point, like at the end of May. Ultimately on June 15th, so the Porter County judges worked so incredibly hard with our other justice stakeholders, such as our commissioners, our health department, our emergency management agency, the police, probation, public defenders, prosecutors, probation, the DCS. All of us kind of powwowed together to come up with, how are we going to do this in a safe way for you and you and you, and because there's so many overlaps with all of these things. So we put a plan together, and on June 15th, it was accepted by the Supreme Court because they had to approve it. But really, I think it was about June, I think the first Monday in June, or right around there, Judge Clymer decided he was going to be our guinea pig, and he was going to be kind of the first court to start opening where we had the social distancing practices in place, and we had X's or seats marked off so that we could socially distance everybody, and masks and hand sanitizers and everything. So he probably at the beginning of June was the first one to do it. Then Judge Bradford did it, and then I followed the week after that, so that we kind of spaced them out, so that we could kind of be learning as we went along how we needed to tweak things. Because it changed dramatically, everything. For example, when you walk up to the courthouse now, there are signs out there that say that you are required to wear a mask. So you come in and you have to have a mask. If you don't have one, we will provide one, because we don't want to turn you away from having your court business because you forgot your mask. But you get screened by the security, the temperature is taken. You're asked the basic COVID questions about, have you been exposed to anybody with COVID? Have you experienced symptoms of COVID? Have you traveled anywhere that would give you concern? Those kinds of questions. And then if you pass all of those, then you're allowed to proceed to wherever it is you're going. And then when you get to the respective court, now you sit outside outside of the courtroom in a designated spot that's away from everybody else. You're let in when it's your time. You have seating that's designated for certain people, and we sanitize between hearings, and you wear your mask, and you stay away from people. It's just been really different. So.
Well, that kind of answered my next question, is what precautions. I think you pretty eloquently stepped through the precautions the court's taking, which sound pretty aggressive and So, but one thing, and they're really not an optional participant, but the jurors for
Mhm.
these court cases. What type of measures are you taking to try to assure them that it's okay for them to participate in a trial? Are
Okay.
there any programs put together to ensure that this is safe?
And that's a really good question, because that has been one of the driving forces for the courts to get approval from the Supreme Court to kind of put a pin or toll all these super important constitutional deadlines that we have on criminal cases. So for example, if there's somebody in custody who wants to have a speedy trial, that means that we have to get that we have to start that trial within 70 days of certain other timeframes like date of arrest or date of request. So there's all kinds of different time constraints there. But when we had this COVID issue, the Supreme Court told all the courts, you are to suspend all of these time deadlines, and those people just have to sit, which is not fun for them. But the reasoning behind it was because of the safety of the jurors, because to have a jury, we have to bring way more jurors, potential jurors in to be examined and either chosen or eliminated. And so if we need 50 people to pick 7 jurors or 100 people to pick 13 or 14 jurors for bigger cases, you are compiling 100 people or so at a time when COVID restrictions are saying that's a no-no, as are the governor and the CDC and everybody else. So we had to put a pin in that, and we actually do not even start resuming our jury trials until after the middle of August. So we are not even at that point yet. But in our plan is to have perhaps jury selection at the expo center or somewhere where we can have them spread out, and we can just give people adequate spacing and just have the 50 or 75 people there in a safe context to conduct jury selection. When we select our jury, then we can bring those people back to the courthouse, because now we've got our little group, but that way it helps keep those people safe, so that the jurors understand that that's going to happen and they don't flip out going, oh my gosh, what are they doing to us? We send that information along with their juror summons saying, this is what our plan is for you, so that you understand what's going to happen. Additionally, we are way more flexible with vulnerable classes. So if you're over 60, if you've got any autoimmune issues, if you're caring for somebody in your home who is a vulnerable class, like maybe there's a child or there's an elderly person or something, and you feel very uncomfortable about wanting to step into the role of a juror at this point with COVID, then we are more likely than not going to excuse that, because we don't want to put anybody's health at risk or even a tangential person at risk for this. And honestly, I think from some of my other colleagues in other counties who have just slowly started doing jury trials, they really haven't had an issue. The people who have shown up have completely embraced all the safety measures, and they're committed to being good jurors for the people. If you've got concerns, those people have stayed home. The people who are there seem to want to be there. So that's good.
Yeah, and so really when they get their summons, and I remember that form when I was summoned for jury, there is a question at the bottom, is there anything to keep you from serving as a juror? And so they can just put down there, I have an elderly parent at home, or their conditions that they feel would prevent them from serving on a jury.
Right. I believe that we even have some questions that are specifically COVID related now added to our juror questionnaire or our summons. So that way they know that we are acknowledging that that's a factor. But we've been we're going to be very understanding about that, and again, safety is first and foremost with everything. So we want them to be able to come and not worry about, we want them to come and focus on the case and not be worrying about what they're catching, and stuff like that. So it's, and then with deliberations, we may have to come up with something different, like instead of deliberating in the smaller jury room where you're kind of right next to each other around a long table, you know, we may spread out people in another, in our courtroom and shut it all down so that they have access to that, and sound is all off and everything so that they can do that. And so we're still kind of playing around with that. My first jury trial, I believe, is August 17th. So we'll see how things kind of shake out with that. I've got some planning to do with how I'm going to do that. And it really depends on what kind of trial it is too, how many people and jurors and witnesses and things like that that are going to be involved.
And whether there's an uptick in COVID, like
correct. And that's the other,
yeah, that's the thing, is there's no definitive timeline that you
right,
know for sure this is going to end.
correct. And so, you know, what's been happening is originally all the, like the Porter County courts petitioned the Supreme Court and said, hey, we've got this COVID crisis. Most of our jurors are, not most, 30% or so of our jurors are over the age of 60, which puts them in that more vulnerable class. We don't have hand sanitizing stations around. I mean, we're just not equipped logistically for jury trials. Will you help us and grant this petition to toll all these important time deadlines so that we can make our way through this? And so they did, and they said, okay, from March, whatever, I think it was 19th that I submitted the petition to the Supreme Court, through mid-May, you can have we're going to toll those deadlines. Well, then in the meantime, things kept getting worse and worse, and the Supreme Court on their own kept extending those deadlines. We didn't even have to ask them. That was so important for us to do. So our transition reports are contingent upon the ability to move forward because it's safe to do so. So you're right, Callie, when the numbers are spiking and going up, we left it in there that if we need to, we'll petition them again and we'll back up the truck if we need to, because, you know, we want to implement this. And I think everybody's so anxious to get things going again. I can tell you that people are they want to just get back to as much normalcy as possible, but that just can be super dangerous. So we're playing that by ear and just seeing as things reopen and more cases are going up, we may have more problems finding jurors if people are exposed or sick or quarantined. It's just such an unusual time.
Exactly.
And that brings another question, because sitting on the other side of the table, a person may, you know, that's incarcerated for all this period of time and for no fault of their own are having to serve an extended time in incarceration. What do you feel about their fair access to a trial, or do you feel that there can be some accommodations once, if they are found and convicted, that can be built into the time served? What is their interaction as far as seeking a fair access to trial at this point?
Well, I've had a couple of people who have requested speedy trials, and I had one who requested it before COVID hit, and we had set it during COVID without knowing COVID was going to happen. And once the Supreme Court indicated that we were not to have trials, it wasn't like if you don't want to, you don't have to. It was like you are not permitted to have any jury trials, because they wanted everybody kind of on this. It was basically at one point, all the courts in Indiana were in the same boat. Like it wasn't like you were getting a bad shake here in Porter County. I mean, every single court was shut down like that too. So those cases, I had to look those defendants, you know, in the eye through the video and just express, if, you know, we said it, we're not allowed to have it. And you have to understand why, because we can't bring all these people together right now in a safe manner and conduct a trial, you know, in a speedy manner for you. We just can't. Nobody is. So they just kind of had to suck it up. As far as the timing, anytime that they sit in jail on these charges, if they are ultimately convicted, of course, they get credit for that. So, you know, it may be prolonged, but on the other hand, if they are ultimately convicted, all that time is counting towards whatever sentence they receive. It's really the other situation. If they were acquitted, you know, that's kind of just.
What compensation do they get for that time? I mean,
that's just, it was a cost of doing business, I guess. I hate to, you know, say it like that, but, you know, we weren't in a position to really change anything. There was just no good answer for anybody on this. And everybody was on the same playing field. So yeah, it's a tough one for those guys.
Yeah, this is one thing that, you know, if we talk to people that we've never experienced anything like this in our lifetimes, and it's not being fair to anybody. So
right.
it's hard to explain to someone who's sitting and being incarcerated and, you know, they're looking for their day in trial. So
right.
well, with that regard, I mean, gosh, you know, I've got to say, our heart goes out to you for taking your chair in this.
In the middle of all
I hate to use
this.
trying times. I hate that phrase.
I know,
I
because you
want
hear
that
it all the
phrase to be
time on
gone.
on
In
TV.
these trying
During
times.
these trying times.
So let's fast forward. I mean, you evidently came in with the dream and you know, having your own court and being able to serve as a circuit court judge. What are your hopes for the future? And let's try to eliminate COVID. Let's pretend it's going to go away, which we all pray and hope it will.
Yeah.
What are your hopes? What do you have? Do you have some changes that you were thinking up, or what would, in your best hopes, what would you like to see in the court system?
Well, for my court specifically, with the circuit court, because I have oversight over the entire juvenile services center, my hope for that aspect of the court, or the juvenile services, is to continue to do the good work that Judge Harper had started. And that is to continue not only to carry on the programs that she started and improve upon them as technology changes and as life changes, but also to just keep looking for those cutting edge programs that really bring a new approach and a new, breathe some new life into programming for these kids. My goal has always been, I've just always had a soft spot for kids. And when you know, in divorce land, you know, it was always about the kids when parents were fighting. And, you know, you guys need to knock this off. Your kids are the innocent victims here. And so my focus was on the kids. Now I get to do it. It's on a delinquency level with the juvenile delinquency cases. And it's on the, like with the kids that get brought in from the DCS, you know, little broken bodies and abused children and things like that. You know, it's focusing on them as well. So I feel like I have this wonderful opportunity to just continue to grow these programs and keep an open mind about just really cool new things that can make our kids better. I feel like the stronger that our kids are, whether they came from an abusive home through DCS or a drug infected home or infested home, or they were delinquents, if we can get them on the right track, then they're less likely to be in front of me in the adult system. And that to me is hopefully stopping the cycle of this criminal activity and recidivism. So that's one thing. When it comes to the adult system, I again still have some getting cozy with all of these things in the court calendar, but I can already tell I am like way more of a hands-on person. So I am looking forward to just getting my hands on some of these cases that are bigger civil cases, and just trying to work with the parties and the attorneys to just hopefully make them feel like they're more of a priority, because unfortunately civil cases tend to take a back seat to criminal cases because liberty is at stake in the criminal cases. But I feel bad for the people that, you know, civil cases can take a long time anyway before it even gets to trial. So I just, if I can find a way to make those cases move a little more efficiently, not that Judge Harper didn't, but I just want to explore ways to try to do that. So that's just another way that I hope to improve the efficiency of the court at this point.
Yeah, sounds great. Boy,
Yeah.
This has been very informative. We appreciate your time and time out to be on our show, and we're very honored and that you're able to share this information with our listeners. And that we'll probably start wrapping up the show, unless you have something you want to share with us. Any parting remarks?
Well, the one thing that, you know, in the future, if you guys are looking to fill some space in the future, I know in the fall, our court is going to be starting what's called a truancy court. And that's kind of something new. And we're going to get that kicked off by the time school starts. And what that is, it's kind of an innovative idea, but it's bringing the kids who are truants with the parents of those kids who are charged with educational neglect, and taking them out of the two individual courts and bringing them together to be dealt with by a team of players, a prosecutor, defense attorney, mental health person, and one judge, and that would be me, to oversee and to try to mend the whatever's broken in that family that's keeping those kids from going to school. So that's something that, if you want to put that in the back of your minds, it could be it'll be the first one in the state of Indiana, and it's pretty exciting. So I think when the school year starts, that might be something interesting for you to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
sure.
Boy, Judge Mary, it's been great. Wish you the best, and hopes, and by all means, stay safe and everything you do. And
hopefully I'll be seeing you in some theater things soon too.
I know, I love it. I miss you, and you guys stay safe too. And thank you again for letting me spend some time with you today. I appreciate it.
Everything you do for Porter County, babe.
thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thanks, I love it.
And with that, we'll say goodbye for
Goodbye
now.
to everybody.
Okay,
Great.
bye.
Thanks, Mary.
Good.
This episode of the Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by
Dutch Farms, maintaining a family tradition of quality for over 91 years.